Hey, what's up, guys? It's JD, and I just wanted to thank you for your patience in waiting for this episode. I know that some of you were concerned, from what I understand, that we might have quit. We have not quit. We just are you guys end up being the victims of the crazy schedule that I have for my real job. And I know it's not an excuse, but it's a reason as to why you haven't heard from us. So I apologize deeply. Right now it is camp season. You all know that I work with youth and I am on camp assignment. So it's going to be a little slower over the summer. We'll get another couple episodes out for July, and then hopefully things will turn back around for August. So please do not panic if you go a minute without hearing from us. I promise you, we have not stepped away from the podcast. I've just had a crazy life as of recently. When don't I, right? But it's been crazy. So thanks again for your patience and enjoy the episode.
Do you mean to tell me that you were wishing you had a fly rod?
I could go there.
Time for the Angler Within podcast with Roy Bilby.
Well, hello there, Roy.
Hey, JD, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay, but I got a bad case of a skunks.
Oh, I hate that.
Got out finally. I mentioned before I was going to go on a float with our good buddies Matt and Sean. Went on the west branch of the Delaware. Had it all figured out, or thought we did. Got there early in the morning. Everybody was on time. We were prepared.
Things are looking good.
Things were looking good. Beautiful weather. A little cold, but beautiful weather. You know, this trip had been postponed once. We got on the water. We get out there. We're fresh. We're casting like pros. Sean's rowing because he's good at that. He was the experienced rower in the bunch. So he's obviously the master fly fisherman. So he was essentially our guide for the day. We went out for a little over 9 hours.
Yeah, float trips, when I've done them, they've been an all-day deal.
And we caught, drum roll please, 0.
Gee, that's rugged.
You know, and Sean was casting too here and there, and he didn't catch anything either. We did see some fish. We were doing everything possible.
Clear water.
You know, to catch fish. I think that I missed a couple strikes early on.
Okay.
But that was the only action we had. And there were hatches, caddis hatch was going on. There was a sulfur hatch later in the day.
Just going to ask you about, were there any hatches?
Yeah, we were watching them rise. I mean, they were rising fish. But
good grief, should have been able to catch them. You would think.
You would think, but you know that river is so high pressure. There's so many people on that river all the time. It was quite the day we were out there, but generally when you go over those bridges, if you're in that neck of the woods, you can always see boats and fishermen, bank fishermen out there waiting around. There's always people on them.
These are pressured, jaded fish.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, hardest ones there is to catch. But they know a real bug when it's up on, coming up through.
Sure they do. No, but they do. But also, Sean was teaching us how to skate the caddis across the water. We were doing everything that a fly does. Yep. And the thing that I was most excited for was lunch. Because I brought a whole rotisserie chicken to make sliders with King's Hawaiian sweet rolls.
Well, as good as that sounds, I've got to tell you, the meal, any snacks, lunch, that has never been the highlight of my fishing excursions ever.
When you're not catching any fish, it becomes the highlight.
I work awful hard at trying to not let that happen.
And the weather was calling for 10-mile-an-hour winds. And it blew. It was gusting to 25 easy.
Of course it was.
And every time it did that, we would just say 10-mile-an-hour winds. Every time it did it.
Every time it took your hat off.
The water was at about 527 CFS.
Okay.
It was in the low sixes all week. We were watching it very closely because they made it very clear on the phone from our good buddies over there at West Branch Angler that if it got below 500 at Hale Eddy, that no boats would go out. And we learned why, because even at 527, we bottomed out. And,
oh boy.
Sean had to get out and push the boat
Ah,
through a couple of low spots. We bottomed out a couple times along the way. One rock we hit pretty good. That was out towards the Hill 80 Bridge. Here's the craziest part of the whole story. You have to shuttle yourselves. You got to set up your own shuttle. Makes sense.
okay.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And, you put in, we put in over at the sewage plant and we floated down and we got out back at the West Branch Angler. Got everything up our back. My back was screaming. So was theirs. We were all,
9 hours.
we were tired and
Yeah.
sore and sunbeaten. And I had a big hat on and I had long sleeves. You'd have been proud. I had long sleeves and I had pants on. And go to grab my keys to get the Jeep. And where do you think the keys were?
Not where you reached.
In Matt's car at the
Are
put-in.
you kidding me?
At the put-in.
Oh, are you kidding me? What do you do?
Well, I scrambled. Obviously, I was about to have two mad friends at me shortly if I didn't figure something out. I walked up to the first cabin that had people sitting outside on the porch. Have you been to West Branch Angler?
No, I haven't.
It is a very hoity-toity place,
Oh boy.
all of the very high-end fishermen, only the greatest, go to the West Branch Angler. And they were out there on their porch, and I walked over
Veranda,
and I
sipping
said,
their martinis.
I said hello, and they said hi, and I said nice to meet you. Can I ask you a question? And they said sure. I said, and if you can, I understand, but here's my predicament. And I'm trying not to be very loud in telling them what was going on because Sean and Matt were still discussing amongst themselves what we're going to do about this
Or what they're going
predicament.
to do to you.
Yep. And I said, would you mind driving me about 10 minutes from here so I can get my keys because my keys are at the put-in the other car. And they said, well, that's a problem. And I said, yes, it is. And the guy said, well, lucky for you, I've only had one wine. So yes, we're happy to drive you. And
How kind of you, good sir.
exactly. And Matt and I got into the car and the guy called us both young lads. He called us young
boy.
lads. So apparently we don't look too old yet. Although Matt and I both have a gray beard. So that was interesting to be called young lads. And they got us down there and we picked up the vehicle and came back and I grabbed Sean and then I drove him from West Branch to my house to grab my stuff and then up to Bennington, drove him home where I then stayed the night and drove down to Saratoga the next day for a concert at SPAC.
Yeah, that's a long day.
That was a long couple days. The long day, I tell you, I was very tired driving up there. Right around, 20 miles from his house, I was yawning a lot.
imagine.
Yawning a lot. If you know Route 7.
Yeah,
That
that's
was
not good.
or 4. Route 4 is 7. What goes up? What goes from Troy up to Bennington? Is it 7?
7.
It is 7. Yeah.
Route
So I
7.
was very tired. But we got home, got into his house, and he's got a pair of dogs.
Oh,
And
okay. I was-
and one of them ran over and said hello and punched me right in the junk.
Ouch.
Dogs love to do that to me. I don't know why.
Hello.
And
Yeah.
it got me. I wasn't ready for it, and it got me good.
Oh,
and
you're
at
never
that point,
ready.
I said,
It
going.
happened so quick.
I said, I'm going to bed,
Yeah.
and that was the final act of the day.
Calling it a night.
Yeah. So hopefully your story's a little better. And once again, big thanks to Sean for taking care of Matt and I that day on the water. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Even though we caught 0 fish, we still had a blast.
Oh, I'm sure you
It was
did.
great.
I'm sure you did. Great river mates.
Mm-hmm.
My good man, I should say.
Young lads.
Young lads. Well, I went out a second time for a bluegill. Now I absolutely flat out crushed them. The 3 days coming into the full moon, 3 days prior when I absolutely crushed them. I caught 76 bluegill, brought home a portion of them. I brought home a portion so that I would have to go back out and do it again somewhere else. I like to do a rotation of my bluegill fisheries. And I got a place up in Otsego County. I don't know, maybe you've heard of it. It's called Goey Pond. It's on Goey Pond Road, seasonal road. It's on the on the north side of 28 and up on top of the mountain, but it's seasonal. Very, very much so. If you meet somebody on that road coming the opposite direction, somebody's backing up a good ways. It's pretty tight, and it was pretty rough. I mean, it was dry when I went there in May the very first time. I had to lock into four-wheel drive because the potholes were so big and the washouts were so big. I was spinning all the way up through. And so I said, "Well, I'm only coming here once a year. This is rough." And then they redid the road. They restoned it, and it's great now, but it's no wider than it was. So it's you just hope you don't meet somebody the 2.5 miles to get up to this body of water, and it's good sized. I would guess probably 75 acres, maybe 80. Good sized body of water, real deep in the middle, but on the back side, there's these banks where the bluegill bed like crazy with the full moon. And there was no way I was going there the first full moon in May because it was May 1st and it was 30 degrees. So I held off on my bluegill runs until the end of the month of May, and I mean, that first run was really successful. Went to a different body of water for the second one. I go to this Goey Pond, which in the past, we've had days, me and one other guy, 109 bluegill. You know, you keep a portion of them because you want to have to go back. And I went there expecting to have maybe a 60, 70 fish day. That's what I mean, we just had the full moon. I was like 3 days out of the full moon. Should still be good. It was not. It took me an hour into that trip, and I went straight to my best bank. And 1 hour in, I had one little largemouth and one big slamming bluegill. One. Singular, uno, and I was not seeing beds anywhere. And there's a place halfway down that back bank where there's a little bit of a rock ledge and there's a bunch of reeds and they bed like crazy on either side of that. And the beds just were not there, but then the rest of the bank has got overhanging pines. And where the little dollar pads were just starting to come up through, I could see a few beds and I could see a few bluegill moving. The problem I had, and this goes, you were talking about the hatch. There was a hatch that morning. There were bugs everywhere. And everywhere I looked, bluegill were coming up, giant bluegill coming up on top and slurping those bugs. All I've got is two panfish boxes full of jigs. What do jigs do? Well, they don't spend any time on the surface. They sink to the bottom.
Do you mean to tell me that you were wishing you had a fly rod?
I could go there. I could go there. If I'd have had a fly rod, even with my limited casting ability, I guarantee you I would have got them bluegills to bite because they were taking bugs off the surface everywhere I looked. And it was driving me nuts because when they're doing that, they're looking up. They're not looking down. You cast a jig, it drops out of their periphery. They're looking at the next bug they're going to take that's on top. And so I had the DAC stacked against me. Only on 2 casts I made to rising fish did I get a strike. One I hooked and lost, the other one I landed, and they were big ones. But eventually the wind got blowing enough. It just gradually built throughout the morning. I was there 5.5 hours. I ended up with 29 bluegill, 20 of which were palm sized that I kept because I planned on keeping 20 or 25, expecting to catch 70. That didn't happen. I had 29 bluegill and 5 largemouth in 5.5 hours. So, and out of that, I'll cold 20 bluegill, which for us is 4 fish fries because I do 5. These bluegill are so big for my dad and I. 5 is plenty. 5 fillets apiece, and it's plenty. These are big, big bluegills. You can hardly get your hand around. And I'll send you a picture for this episode. Where do you see the size of these bluegills? So I want to put a little information out there. And this is the first time I've run to this exact scenario. I think once I found where they had been bedding, where they were in a defensive mode, they would have been a lot more aggressive on my baits had there not been a hatch going on. Once I got down to that bottom, the very bottom end of that side before it hooks around and goes up the other bank, that's where I found a lot of beds right against a bank with some overhanging pines in some dollar pads. And I picked that, it was the only spot that was consistent. I caught 10 bluegill there. 8 were keepers, 2 of them were too small. I threw back. I actually rotated through my areas and came back to that to finish up to get the last 2 I needed to have 20 in my basket to bring home.
What
So
is a dollar pad?
those are lily pads, but they're the little small like purple red ones,
Like a silver dollar?
about the size of a dollar, a little bit bigger. That's why they call them dollar pads. They don't get very much bigger than a silver dollar, but they're kind of reddish purple hue to them, maroonish in color, and they're about a third the size of a regular lily pad. So they're just called dollar pads. They have very fine stems, and they were bedded in those like crazy. So if you're going to target bluegill, they are so easy to catch around the full moon because that's when they're bedding and they're very active in the shallow and they're grouped up. That's the thing. They're spawning, so they are en masse, and you find them, you can clean house. But it seems to me that the days leading up to the full moon are better than the days immediately after the full moon. And they can both be good, but beware of the hatch. Carry some poppers in your box. Carry some dry flies. If I just had a few dry flies, I could have put a float on one of my rods with a fly trailing behind it about 3 foot on a leader, and I'd have caught him doing that for sure. But I had nothing. So guess what? I'm putting some dry flies in my panfish box. Should I ever run into that scenario again? Absolutely, I'm going to do that because I've got the floats. I use the slip floats all the time, but a dry fly hanging behind that, they'll absolutely bust that. Uh, my buddy, the mad scientist, Mark Keebers, he does a float and fly a lot. And I shame on me for not having them in my box already because of him showing me that. So there's a good tip for when the bluegill throw you a curveball. But again, in the month of June, we're going to have a full moon. If you haven't been out for bluegill, you got to go after them on the full moon. It makes life so easy. You can look like a genius. They bed on shallow banks that get the sun because they need that to incubate the eggs. But they form these huge colonies in the shallows when they're spawning. And I'll tell you what, you can find them with your nose. I can smell them. I mean, I'll pull into an area and oh, they're here. You can smell it in the air. You can smell the fish spawn. It's just you can recognize it's just got a fishy smell to it. I'm sure you've run into that. Other people have.
You can
That
smell the fish.
they're there. Absolutely. You can smell them spawning. It just rises from the water and it's in the air. And I recognize it instantly. I'm like, oh man, I'm in the right spot. They're here.
Sounds like we just got the name of this episode.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you always surprise me with that. And let me just tip my hat to you, JD, because I never know what you're going to call an episode or what little clip you're going to lead in with, but you always nail it. I could never do what you do with that. You always nail it. I mean, you amaze me.
It's fun.
You always nail it. So yeah, I've switched to crappie now. And again, here I put a lot of perch in my freezer in March and the very beginning of April. I got about a 3-week window when I'm strictly fishing for perch and putting a bunch of them in the freezer because typically do not fish for perch again until November and December. I start collecting those again. I do not fish for them in the summer because I got too much going on with the bass and the bluegill and crappie. So now is the time I do the bluegill around the full moon. After that period, after that week, I'm targeting crappie. My brother-in-law and my sister are here from California. They arrived yesterday. Every time he comes out, I give him a hug. I tell him, get a license. And he's like, I'm on it. And he's going to fish with me 2, 3 times while they're out here. And our first trip, I told him we had a fish fry tonight and we had crappie. I told him, guess what? I'm short 2 bags of crappie now. We're going crappie fishing. So I'm taking him to a lake. I've recently started fishing for crappie. Of course, it's got crappie, bluegill, perch, pickerel, rock bass, largemouth. It's got 60 foot of water in the upper end that they have rainbow trout in. It's a 2-tier fishery, and it's only about a 100-acre, 125-acre lake. How do you go to a lake that's got 10 different species and target one specific one? It has to do with the time frame of the year, the species you're targeting, the calendar period, the depth, and their habits, and the bait you throw. To go to this lake to specifically target crappie with all those other species, I'm going to be throwing a 2-inch Bass Pro Shops Squirm and Shad, which I throw for perch, but crappie eat it like candy. And I'm also throwing a Bass Pro Shops Baby Shad, which is a 2-inch. It's like the tiny shad that is made by Bass Assassin. It looks like a mousey that you use for ice fishing, but it's made of plastic. The short one, the tiny shad's only about 1.25 inches long. It's a little blob of plastic with a straight, short mouse tail. And the tiny shad, or baby shad, made by Bass Pro Shops, is a 2-inch version of the same bait. That is a killer bait for crappie. A killer bait. Between that and the squirm and shad, that's what I target crappie with. But in order to do that in this lake with all these other species, I'm targeting the areas where the grass beds first start to go down the break. This lake has got shallows along the shoreline out to about 4 foot, and then it's got a break down to about 8 to 10 foot where there's a different vegetation that grows. And that's where I target the crappie because I've learned that late spring, early summer, which is the time frame that we're in now, that's where the crappie hang in this lake. And I've got specific drop offs marked on my GPS that I will go back to every year and throw those baits, and the crappie are there. It's like magic. That's what they gravitate to after they spawn. So that's what I'm going to be targeting with him our first trip. After that, I'll be hitting Schoharie Creek for smallmouth and hopefully some walleye. He's been on Schoharie Creek with me once, but he's not been to the hole that I'm going to take him to. And if we do well there, if the fish are biting, you're the next one I'm taking there because I've got to get you on Schoharie Creek. That's our next trip.
Okay.
And I know you're up for that. We'll just have to look at schedules and figure it out. But that's my plan. That's how I target the crappie this time of year. And I'll give you, we're doing that next week. So next time we record, I'll give an update on that. I'm putting my neck out here. I'm going to target crappie. I will let you know how we did in a lake that's got 10 different species and see if we get our crappie, see if we primarily catch those, or if we catch a variety of everything because everything eats that squirm and shad. But if we get the crappie that we're after, I'm looking for hopefully 15 to 20 crappie. That'll put 4 packages in the freezer and that'll help me out with keeping ahead of.
You say that, and then you're going to jump in here and be like, I boated 85.
Yeah. We did okay. Well, this lake, I'll tell you a little story about this lake. I have a friend I fish with, and this lake is very close to his house, but he hardly ever fished it. And it was 4 years ago we started fishing it together. I told him, look, I've always wanted to fish that lake. I love the challenge of figuring out new places. I'll drive to your house, pick you up. I haven't been there. Navigate me there. It's only 10 minutes from your house. And let's do this. And he reluctantly agreed to it. I couldn't figure that out. I'm picking him up. We're using my boat 10 minutes from his house. Easy for him. Why doesn't he want to do this? And for me, he'd fished it a few times. He knows the layout. I don't. I'm going into the unknown, which that is my favorite challenge. And he said, I asked, what's in it? He said, crappie, bluegill, perch, bass. I'm like, well, hey, that's my family. That's, that's who I fish with. So we go there, and it isn't until we are unloading the boat that he turns to me and goes, I've never really done very well here. I think the most I've ever caught is like 10 fish. And I just looked at him and I said, well, today's a different day. Let's just figure it out. So we put the boat in, and he took me to the 3 spots where he caught fish before, and we only caught in this is the truth. We hit the 3 spots where he's caught fish before. We had maybe 10 or 12 between us, a few crappie, a couple small bluegill, a few perch, a couple largemouth, nothing of any size whatsoever. And he said, "Oh, those are my spots. That's what I usually get when I fish here." I went, "All right. Well, I see the layout of the lake now. Hey, I'm here for the day. I'm just going to fish this and approach it the way I would any new fishery." By the end of the day, we had over 80 fish. And guess what? He started fishing there every week and catching a bunch of fish because we unlocked it. When heard it was a lot of bluegill, crappie, and perch, I went there with just my panfish tackle to target those fish. And we got some really decent crappie that day. Not a lot, but I was still learning it was the first time I'd been on that body of water. Happens to be the same lake where we bluegill fished this winter, and just it was a bluegill factory for us. And I credit him for that. We had ice fished it a couple times and never done really well, but he found where the big bluegill hung in the winter, and we went there together 3, 4 times and just absolutely got on them big time. That put a lot of bluegill in my freezer over the winter. We just finished the last of those bluegill, and I've got, a dozen packages from my last 2 trips in the freezer now. So it just keeps the party train rolling. I will give you a full report after our trip on our next podcast, and I'll stick my neck out there to tell you right now, I am targeting crappie. Let's see how it goes.
Side note, have had no problems with the crazy mowing neighbor.
Awesome.
He is respecting the boundary.
How about that?
I
2
very
strikes.
gently asked his wife to remind him not to go over the property line.
And Mama spoke.
Well, she said that he really didn't mean to do it. And I said, "Okay, I'll believe you, but can you tell him not to do it again?" And then she said, "That's something I would do. I would do it on purpose. But that's not something that he would do on purpose." And I said, "Okay, thank you."
I would have said, "So who was mowing?"
Right, exactly. No, I saw him. It was definitely him. Well, she was just saying as far as levels of pettiness, and I said I would have done it too. I can be a petty person as well, but
I can stoop to that level if
But-
I need to.
thank God Christ is avert on that. I don't want to deal with that all summer long. Tell you what.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was waiting for that update because I thought sure it was going to be a third time, and oh, did I?
No,
Like he didn't even notice.
no, he respected it. He went.
How about that?
He left it just the way it was. It was good. Good to
Yeah.
see. See, happy ending. Cooler heads prevailed.
There you go. Always the way to approach it, in my humble opinion. So now, this is coming right up, is our first tournament of the season. It is on Saratoga Lake. We do it on a Monday because on Saturday it is a madhouse there, especially opening weekend. It's a total madhouse. So we're going on a Monday, and the lake will be much quieter, and you don't have to fight at the ramp to pull out and weigh your fish because there's 40 people in line. We typically done it on a Thursday. This year he set it for Monday. That's hey, something new. And it's that the 15th is the day that our bass season opens. So I mean, we'll be the first ones out there after them. It should be a good, fresh bite with fish that aren't heavily pressured yet. So we're going to go up there one day and pre-fish it. Hopefully we don't get rained out. We're looking to do that at the end of this week and just see what we can find and check spots. And we've got some new stuff we want to throw. We just got to get the boat out, run it through the paces, check all systems, make sure everything's I've got it ready to go. It just I have not been in my nitro yet this year. I mean, we've had frost warnings and freeze warnings for crying out loud. But next week, the heat's supposed to come on and it's supposed to actually act like June. That remains to be seen, but that should do nothing but help the bite. which has been tough. You guys, that's having those 9 hours without getting bit. That's not unusual from what I've been hearing because of this weather pattern that we've been stuck in. And I have seen, I mean, I don't know, I don't want to sound puffy or anything, but I have not been skunked, but I've been pretty darn close a few times. One fish, skin of my teeth a couple times, and it's been tough. I've also had a few amazing days. I've had 3 entries that I wrote in red ink in my journal. We know what that means. Red letter day absolutely put the beat down on them. So hopefully our first tournament goes well, and I'll be giving reports on that. I don't have secrets. I always tell people what I use, where I use it, and what I catch them on and where I'm doing it, because I'm not about secrets. I'm about giving out information to help more people catch more fish. Plain and simple. That's my job. That's my only job. If I didn't do that, I'd be unemployed.
Well, there you go. So I had a chance to stop into Bass Pro Shops in Utica. Saw our good buddy Rick Bach and handed off the equipment for him to make an appearance.
Rick Bach. I tell you what an amazing guy.
He didn't recognize me.
Outdoor writer extraordinaire. He didn't recognize you?
No. He was confused. He didn't know why I was handing him a microphone at first. And then finally he's like, oh, yeah.
I know who you are now.
Yeah. I'm not the recognizable face of the two of us, clearly.
Great guy. Outdoor writer extraordinaire. Wrote for Field and Stream. Wrote for Bassmaster. He's got a book coming out. When he wrote for Field and Stream, he traveled in all across the U.S. to meet anglers that had their own special deal. And we talked about this before, I think. A guy up in Maine who fly rotted for 45-inch northerns and was the best guy in the Northeast at doing that, or a guy in Texas who chased alligator gar but got 100-pounders and caught him like nobody's business, and nobody knew how he could do it so consistently. Stories like that. Guys out in California fishing Clear Lake for 15 to 18 pound largemouth, and he would fish with these guys and interview them. And what he did is he took, I don't know how many chapters are in this book, but he took a handful of what he thought were the most interesting characters that he met in all those travels and years of doing that for Field and Stream, and he compiled them and gave each guy a chapter in this book. And it's about the most interesting fishermen that he felt that he met in doing all that legwork for Field and Stream magazine. So it should be a real interesting read, and we want him on our podcast to talk about that book when it's released and when it's coming out. And he's a high energy guy like both of us, and we will be 3 peas in a pod. It'll be a blast having him on our podcast. So stay tuned for that.
We have a new Bilbyism. It's been a minute.
What did I say?
You laid out a good one. It was worth the wait all this time.
What did I say?
Fly rotted for northern pike. Fly rotted. So you're out bass rotting. You're bass rotting for bass.
Myself say that.
Fly rotted for northern pike.
Well, I say look it up. It's probably a word.
I highly doubt that.
You got me. I get caught up in what I'm talking about, but
I let you finish before I pointed it out.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Glad it was worth the wait.
It's been a minute since you had a good one.
Yeah.
It's almost as good as Builded.
Yeah. That was a slip of the tongue.
Yeah.
Fly rotted probably was not.
Fly rotted. I fly rotted for 9 hours in a boat. Caught 0. Anyway.
Maybe.
All right. Well, good to see you. And
you too.
Next episode we'll touch base with Rick Bach, and he'll tell us all about his book.
Yeah. Awesome. Can't wait.
Slide into Roy's DMs. All lowercase Roy Bilby on the old Instagram. And thanks for tuning in to another wonderful, action-packed episode of The Angler Within.
Because we are here to help you tap into your Angler Within.